Hi, and welcome to A Drummer's Guide to, the podcast all about the things that it takes to be a professional musician aside from actually playing your instrument. My name is Emily Dolan Davis. I have been a drummer since 1999, professionally since 2008, and helping others to do the same since 2018, and that's why we're here today. So this week's episode is when I tell you the discomfort I feel speaking on this subject is just wild, but I think for that reason I was like, yeah, I need to do this, basically, just to kind of, I know I like to, the whole thing about this podcast is kind of lifting the curtain on all the other stuff that goes on in being a professional musician. And this is a really uncomfortable subject for me. So I'll give you a bit of backstory, because weirdly, I've been reading a couple of books recently about kind of vulnerability, about looking at shame, and how connection is related to that, and various things like that. It's by an author called Brené Brown. A couple of books. One of them is called The Gift of Imperfection, which I just finished, which was great. I went to Amsterdam over the weekend and basically blitzed this book on the train. It's like a 5-hour journey, so each way. So I was like, I'm going to read that book, and it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. And now I'm reading another one of hers called Daring Greatly. And anyway, very interesting book, very interesting concepts surrounding sort of, like I say, shame, vulnerability, imperfection versus perfectionism, which obviously I know that we're all a little bit predisposed to, I feel like all creative, I think humans generally, but creatives definitely suffer with the perfectionism tendencies, and that's kind of really battling that. But anyway, I digress. So I was reading these books, and then a few days ago, in fact it was last week now, I got a comment on one of my posts. It was just a post about an episode that I put up, and this person, who will remain anonymous, basically wrote, this is very, what's the word that they used? Oh, I can't remember. This is exploitative. That's the word. This person is being exploitative. I was a big fan of Emily's before she commented on a post of mine. I was so excited because I really liked what she was about, what she was doing. And lo and behold, I realised I came across someone else's post, and she had posted exactly the same comment on their post as mine. It's all, fake, what she preaches, this sort of stuff. And I was like freaked out, like completely freaked out, like, oh my God. So this person was essentially calling me out, and I'm not saying that they were incorrect. They were correct. And basically, the amount of shame that I felt, because this is what had happened. So a few years ago, as I often do, I'm always looking to see what people are up to in terms of connecting, growing their Instagram, growing their podcast, growing whatever their business asset is that they're kind of using to promote their business or whatever. I'm always looking into that. What are people doing at the moment? One of the things that people have always done and has always worked really well, and if you have your own business, I would highly recommend this, is connecting with their ideal audience on their profile. So not build it and they will come, as in they will find your profile. You go out and you seek your ideal client, you start conversations with them, you start cultivating a relationship, right? So I found this bit of information. I was like, yeah, that makes total sense. I'm going to start doing that. So I started doing that. And when I tell you that it drained me in a way that it was just too much for me. And I thought, right, I know what I'll do, because A, I'm a complete productivity geek. I love a bit of productivity. And B, as I think we are all hardwired, and I'm telling myself that to make myself feel better, I think we all try to find shortcuts, the quickest possible route to the answer that we're after, right? So I decided, because especially at the time, I just started using this app called Keyboard Maestro. It's on Mac, and basically you can create what are essentially quite in-depth macros, so things that you can make your computer do automatically, right? And I was really enjoying this. I love something like that. I love where you can sort of program and create things. I find it really interesting and fun, and there's a lot of problem solving involved, and it's kind of like you have your goal and you find out a way to do it. I love it. It really works for my brain. It's fun to me. It really is. So anyway, I decided I was going to make this elaborate way of essentially commenting on people's posts in a way that it wasn't just a generic kind of thing. It was using their name. It was kind of something a little seemingly more personal, and I will take full responsibility now. It was not, but it was with a view to starting a conversation with people. It was with a view to getting followers that were in the vein of what I was doing. And I thought, you know, this is the only way I'm going to do this without completely burning myself out. Now, was it right to do this? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It was, you know, it wasn't honest. And so anyway, I did this for a while and I left it running. It would sort of run for like a couple of hours a day or whatever. And it really worked. It was great. But then after a point, I was like, you know what? I don't like the incongruency of like who I am and what I do and then doing this. It just didn't make sense to me. I was like, I feel gross. So I stopped doing it. Anyway, this was referencing that period of time. So this comment that he had noticed, sorry, I just said he, even though I wanted to keep it there, but he had noticed, was from a couple of years ago or maybe longer. I don't actually know. And my initial reaction when I saw this comment, basically calling me out, and rightly so, completely legitimately, like, I have nothing to say. It's just like, yeah, you caught me. You caught me. That's what it felt like. And I freaked. The shame of like, oh my God, not only have I done this thing that I kind of stepped away from and I was like, phew, I got away with it, sort of thing, without anyone noticing. I mean, it was never badly intended, of course, but, you know, there's a grey area there. And although it's been a good couple of years, I got caught and I was like, the shame, especially, or, you know, like this podcast that I do is all about being open, being honest and all of that. And it was like he'd found this deep, dark secret of mine. So obviously saw this comment, freaked, pressed hide straight away. I was like, not dealing with this, not dealing with this. This is too much. I just can't. So I hit the comment and I was like, oh my gosh, let me just ignore this. Maybe it'll go away. And then, and I will, to my own credit, I feel, it was not long before, and I think it's partly because I'd read these books, and that's why I wanted to mention about reading these books. And I thought, hold on a second. Rather than just ignoring this and, you know, playing dumb or whatever, like trying to avoid it, doing anything I can to avoid it, why don't I try something different? Why don't I just own up to it and just apologize? Because I do feel bad about it. Like, I feel genuinely bad. Like, it's not fair and that's not okay. And, you know, I'm so... The connections that I have with people mean so much to me. They really do. And this really is a dirty little thing that I did for a little bit that I'm not proud of at all. But I thought, do you know what? I think it's good to show that I'm not perfect, not by any stretch of the imagination. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna face this head on. I'm gonna be brave. I'm gonna be courageous. That's what Brené Brown talks about, kind of this moment of vulnerability and taking accountability, rather than seeing it as this very negative thing. Think of it like you have to be courageous to be vulnerable. You do, and I believe that. And as I was reading that book, I was like, yeah, I think that's right. And I thought, right, this is an opportunity here. So I unhid the comment and basically just said to them, I just apologized. I said, look, I'm so sorry. At the time that I was like, you got that comment, I thought that I had to comment on as many people as possible, sort of profiles to create connections with people. I thought that's how you grew your audience at the time. I was grossly misinformed and I stopped shortly afterwards, but I apologize. I can completely see why you'd be upset. Like, yeah, and just sort of apologizing essentially. But I get it. Like, I would be annoyed. I would be upset if I were in your position. Like, absolutely. And I can only just say, I'm sorry. It was a mistake. And anyway, so I sent that. I commented on the comment, so I unhid it and I replied to it, and I thought, you know what, this will be a hopefully a moment for other people to see, okay, she makes mistakes, and therefore I can make mistakes, sort of thing. It's not the end of the world. And then I think maybe the next day, I went, like, half of me was like, right, I need to be settled in the fact that I've sent that reply, and that I just need to be okay with that. I'm not expecting a reply back. I'm not expecting vindication, or any sort of like, I don't know, like I'm trying to not let how I feel about myself, my self-worth, hang on whether this person accepts my apology, if that makes sense. And don't get me wrong, that was difficult, but the longer it was that I didn't get a response to that comment, the more I was like, okay, well, this is what the situation is. I'm glad of how I handled myself. I can only focus on that, right? And then I went to go look back at the comment. I think I wanted to see the wording. Obviously, I'm going over this in my head, like the word that they used when they said that it was exploitative. That really hit me in such a horrid way. Like, that was so painful, and because it's like the very last thing that I would ever want to be, or I've never aimed to be that ever, like, so the opposite. So that really hit me hard. Anyway, I went to go look at this comment, and it had disappeared, and I was like, oh, okay, they've obviously deleted it. And part of me was like, okay. Part of me was like, that's a shame in some ways, because I would have, I don't know, I felt proud of being able to reply in that way and take accountability, and I just thought, you know, it's a shame that that's gone, but, you know, it's up to that person, whatever. Anyway, thought no more of it. I kind of took that as, oh, okay, like, not we're cool, but it's okay. Like, they didn't come back screaming at me, so they can't be that mad. Anyway, cut to 2 days ago. I ventured into my other folder in my Instagram, which I'm still getting through, by the way, so apologies if you've got a message that you sent me, chances are it's in there. I'm trying hard to get through them. And there was a message from this person, and they basically was like, I just wanted to apologize for sending that comment. Like, it was really not cool of me to do that in that way, and we should be supporting each other as musicians, and I just want to apologize for that. And I thought that was such a like interesting response, and I was like, I thought that was so kind. What a kind way to respond to me, because they could have emailed me or messaged me and just be like, you know, they could have carried on, you know, they could have, but they chose not to. And I replied to them, and I was like, dude, I get it. Like, and again, I can only apologize, because I would be so upset if I were in your position. And look, this probably sounds very strange, but I'm really glad that we're in touch now. And, you know, it just felt like there was this connection point. And I feel that now, weirdly, we're more connected than most people so quickly, if that makes sense, because there was this moment of vulnerability, honesty from both sides. Like, it takes a lot for someone to call someone out like that. And don't get me wrong, sometimes it's a bit more trolly. This wasn't trolling, because it was true. It was true. I couldn't, what can I say? What you're telling me is correct, and I need to take ownership for that. So anyway, and now, as it turns out, we're kind of like friends. So, like, at least on Instagram, like, you know, in fact, I've got a message I need to reply to them right now. But I just thought it was such an interesting exchange and experience. And I think there's two reasons that I wanted to share this. Well, there's multiple reasons, but I think just showing, here is some real-time, a real-time example of the fact that I am so imperfect. I am a flawed human, right? But I still get to do this thing as my job. And therefore, you don't need to be perfect to have a job in this industry and do what you want to do, need to do whatever. The other thing is just this thing of the importance, I think, and it's not even importance, because that sounds like I'm judging it as important, what I did, but I think the impact, I think, of taking accountability and sort of fessing up to your choices in the past. And, you know, let me tell you, this is not the only mistake that I have made in the past. Absolutely not. You know, there's been, I think I mentioned a few podcasts ago, I don't know if I did, because I think I blank these things out, because this is the other weird thing about sort of vulnerability, right? So I believe, and this might be just me personally, maybe it's you as well, I don't know, I do things a lot of the time to avoid being vulnerable. And I know that sounds absolutely insane, because I do this podcast, and this podcast is actually a platform where I do feel I can be vulnerable, which is great and absolutely terrifying. And this is one of the most terrifying episodes I've done, by the way. I feel like this is as terrifying as the one that I did about feeling down. I think it's like episode 6. It's a really early one about how I sort of was suffering with depression and what that looked like for me and how I tried to handle that. And that podcast episode is the single most spoken about episode to me. When people meet me, or even people that I know and have known for a long time, they will be like, thank you for doing that episode. That actually was really important to me. It was really insightful, or they just didn't feel as alone. And that is a really huge part of why I do this. It's a huge part, if not the reason that I do this, is that feeling of connection. But anyway, it's ironic that I sort of like I say, I have this podcast that is very vulnerable, but there's other things that I do to avoid that vulnerability, like creating this system. It was to avoid that one-on-one kind of interaction. Now, with that, it was certainly to do with my energy levels at the time, and looking back retrospectively, there was so many other things going on in my life that were affecting me very badly, and very affecting my energy levels, my emotions. When I tell you I was in survival mode for very many years in terms of energy and getting things done, it was rough. I'm getting better now, very much so, but I know that that was definitely part of the reason. It's not an excuse, but it was, you know, you can't isolate these things. So anyway, that was that period of time. But in terms of like actually actively avoiding vulnerability, it was things like, so I don't even know when this was. In fact, I think I do, but hold on. Hey Google, when was Instagram created?
The 6th of October 2010.
Fine, this makes sense then. So when it must have been around the end of 2011, or maybe 2012, beginning of 2012. And I was feeling very insecure in my professional career, what I was doing. I was looking at my Instagram and I didn't feel that I had enough followers. You know, it was all about the followers to me. And I think I, like I say, mentioned this, admitted to this. It feels so dirty and gross. I ended up actually buying followers. Not a huge amount, don't get me wrong, but I bought followers to seem more legitimate, to, you know, show myself to the world. I am professional. Look at how many people follow me. It was such a big mistake, because what happened was that insecurity, that sort of not wanting to be vulnerable and face up to, this is the situation, and it wasn't that it was bad, but it just made me feel really insecure. What happened was I ended up buying followers, and then my engagement levels, something that I was really fixated on, especially back then, which I'm not sure how useful it is being fixated on engagement levels in terms of like comments and likes and all that. But anyway, the percentage of comments and likes versus the number of followers was so starkly obvious that a lot of my followers were not real, because the numbers just didn't match, you know what I mean? So like the percentages, there is a percentage that I think that they say like that will denote whether followers are kind of legit followers or not. And this number was way down. This percentage was way down. And because we all think that everyone's looking at us all the time and scrutinizing us all the time, it's like, someone's going to find me out. Oh my God, this is awful. Rah, rah, rah. And then I'm just chasing. I'm chasing those metrics. I'm chasing more. And I stopped the followers that I'd bought. So I was like, this isn't working because this is just making everything worse. It feels like it's kind of calling myself out here. And then I was just trying to chase the real followers. But because I didn't know how to get legitimate followers, that discrepancy just got worse and worse. And it just became an absolute nightmare. And it made me even more... it just made it so much worse, even more insecure, even more imposter syndrome, all of that sort of stuff. And again, I felt like a failure, honestly. I felt shameful. Also, work wasn't coming in, so that kind of all snowballed, and it was just like, oh my God. It just, when everything just feels like it's falling apart and you're trying to desperately grab onto something, and just kind of keep afloat. It felt very much like that, very much like that. And there's been other sort of things for me in terms of not allowing myself to be vulnerable in that way, of just accepting the situation. It's things like I would, rather than taking accountability, I think I really, really value taking accountability more than anything right now. I think that's because of various experiences I've had. I look back on things and I think, why didn't I just, and I know why I didn't, but I wish I could have had the, honestly, self-esteem to take accountability, know that what someone thinks of me does not make me who I am, if that makes sense. Like, I know who I am, I know what my intentions are. I don't do the perfect things. I don't take perfect actions all the time, definitely not. But things like I would blame outside influences. Like, I know I speak about this a lot, but even like that very first recording session that I did that completely flopped, when I came back from that, I distinctly remember telling my parents, yeah, it's because my drums weren't professional enough. What? It was rubbish. They knew it was rubbish. I knew it was rubbish. But I just could not take accountability for the fact that I was not good enough. And that was it was so painful. But let me tell you, if I had done that in that moment, the response would have been connection. It wouldn't have been berating me. Of course not. And if it was, well, that's not very nice. But that's just not how things go, I would do the same in, let's say I was playing with an artist or whoever, and if there were things that I wasn't happy about in the situation. And again, a lot of this for me personally, and this is kind of getting into my own personal sort of things that I've been working through, is that it's very much to do with self-esteem. Very low self-esteem, like for the whole of my life, very low, like in the gutter at points. Getting better, but a lot of it was, a lot of these actions came from that for sure. But let's say I was playing with an artist and things were happening. Either they were conducting themselves in a way that I wasn't happy with, or, there were other surrounding factors that I wasn't happy with, the situation, whatever. And rather than actually standing up for myself, not confronting, but just addressing it and potentially causing a little bit of discomfort, which I was so discomfort adverse, not even like confrontation adverse, like just a little bit uncomfortable, very, very not my thing. So rather than doing that and kind of allowing for connection with the person, the situation, and of course it could go the other way, I would walk away. And that was my way of protecting my vulnerability. But unfortunately, because I conducted myself in that way, I definitely blocked off relationships with people. I definitely missed out on opportunities because I wasn't willing to have the difficult conversations. And often, like I say, that may have been taking accountability. That may have been, just addressing things that I wasn't happy with, and that being okay. I'm allowed to not be happy with things and voice them. Very difficult. Anyway, this is kind of turning into a different episode right now, but Yeah, so I find that that sort of thing of taking accountability, and then this the other thing that I realized sort of in hindsight, is that the thing that would make me physically angry instantly is when people would make mistakes, but then they wouldn't admit to them. They wouldn't take accountability. They would blame everyone else around them. And when I tell you, there's a few things that really irk me, but this is definitely one of them. It would drive me insane. There are very specific people that I'm thinking about that I have worked with in the past, and it creates this monster in me that just really wants to get out and be like, would you just say I made a mistake and just we move on? Like, it's no big deal. But what I realize in hindsight is that I think that was very much a reflection on myself. The reason I was so angry was because I was doing that in various ways. Maybe not as sort of blatantly, because I mean, God forbid I make a mistake, because that's the other thing, the perfectionism thing. No wonder it was so tight around my neck, it felt like, because to me, if I made a mistake, it would mean having to be accountable and stand up and say, I made a mistake, which was the worst thing. Like, I can't blame any outside influences. It is me, I made the mistake. That was horrendous to me, like so horrendous. To me, it was being vulnerable and I just didn't want to. And very much just the other thing for me, in my professional career, I very much tried to wear armor throughout most of my professional career, and it really hindered me in a lot of ways. So I think the quicker you're able to be vulnerable and admit to mistakes and take accountability for things that do go wrong, and don't get me wrong, sometimes there are outside influences, absolutely. I think the quicker you will create connections with people. Obviously, sometimes it will go the other way, and people are like, you know what, we need to part ways or whatever. That's fine too. That's just part of it. It doesn't mean that, you know, everyone has their own stuff. Everyone has their own insecurities and various things that surround their own well-being, should we say. So it's not always a reflection of you, but also it just takes you one step closer to the people that you should be around. Because let me tell you that every time that I can think of that I have taken accountability, it's been terrifying. Some of them have been very, what's the word? Like, not under my control. So for instance, the one that I always think about actually, and I've mentioned this a few times, and it just was so, I was so upset with myself. And this was The Voice Kids. And I'm pretty certain it was the first year, it might have been the second year. It was Taylor Swift, Shake It Off, right? There is a very specific drum pattern on that song. And I had practiced it to death. We had not rehearsed it to death because it's not how we roll. And that is fine. I know that, and that's all good. And we came to the filming, and there was literally part of the song, like the edit that we had done, where it was just drums and vocals. And what did my body do? Not the pattern that is throughout the whole song. It's one thing throughout the whole song. It's hypnotic, it's metronomic, it's, you know, it's a vibe. Oh no, I just decided to do something completely different, and not intentionally. And I was mortified. I was mortified. The other band members looked at me like, huh? And mortified is the only word. Anyway, we finished that song and I was like, guys, I am so sorry. Like, can you fix that in post? Can you just cut and paste those couple of bars, whatever? And the MD just went, I liked it. I thought you were just doing something different. I thought it was cool. And I was like, eh? Oh, okay. So that was an interesting moment of vulnerability and taking accountability that was like, oh, okay, that's weird, but okay, I can get with that. But in a way, I didn't feel like it was the full accountability experience. However, there was another time, and it probably was the third series that I did with them, where I definitely did make a mistake. And, well, no, that other one was a mistake, but I made another mistake, and I was so annoyed at myself. And I remember the bass player just going, don't worry about it, we all make mistakes, it's all good. And it was so lovely. He was so kind about it. And again, it was this moment of connection. I was like, oh, and it felt like a relief. Like I didn't have to be so perfect all of the time. Like it's okay. It's fine. So anyway, I just thought it would be worth sharing this moment that I've had in this last week. And like I say, it's hard for me to kind of present this, I suppose, but at the same time I think it feels empowering for me, but I think it could be, I hope, useful to anyone that's listening right now, just to be like, we make mistakes, and that's okay. And I think recognizing that is a very positive thing. I think also knowing your intention is very useful, because it's the other thing, like sometimes we do things with the very best intentions for all parties and it just isn't received that way. And like that can be very hard also, because if they just can't see it from your point of view, you need to be so strong in your resolve of like, I know what my intention is. But what I will say, there still needs to be an element of recognizing, I can see how that upset you, hurt you, whatever. It absolutely was not my intention, but I get it from your point of view. I get it, and I apologize for that. And how can we do things differently moving forward? That's always a good thing. Like, how can we be proactive about this? Again, that's probably my control freak coming in. I like to sort of have a plan in place. But I don't know. I think when mistakes are made, I'm now seeing it as a chance to be accountable, which is the adult thing to do, I suppose. But I do believe that there is, I don't know, I feel like I can't even explain it. I think when you do things right, in inverted commas, all the time, not all the time, most of the time, or you try to, or whatever, it's fine. But there's something about the depth of making mistakes, or if you upset someone, and then how you deal with that, the depth of the connection that you have with that person, those people, that situation, yourself as well, I think. It's something so different. It's something so deep. And it's the same with friendships. It's the same with relationships, romantic relationships. It's being able to address those difficult, uncomfortable things that make your relationships rich. And that can be, like I say, work relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, and everything in between. And I think avoiding those things just does put up another little layer of like vulnerability shield, like being able to actually connect with people. So I think that there is something to be said for fessing up. Maybe that's what this episode should be called. Fessing up. A drummer's guide to fessing up. But yeah, anyway, I really hope that this has helped you in some way. Part of me is feeling very uncomfortable, and like, I hope you don't think less of me, but look, I know why I've done this episode, and I really hope that this has resonated with you, because I don't think there's anyone listening that has not made a mistake before. There can't be. It doesn't make sense. That hasn't made a mistake that they're like, that was not cool. And I sit here and I tell you that was not cool what I did. I really, I don't think this person listens to this podcast, but I am so grateful that they called me out, I think, because, it gave me that opportunity to act differently. Because don't get me wrong, I've had other comments. They're not like this. They're more trolly, like I said. And sometimes I reply to them in a hopefully lighthearted way. Sometimes I hide them. Sometimes I ignore them. But to have the opportunity to really address something that I was wrong. I was 100% wrong. And then they just reacted with such kindness and grace. And it was really, I don't know, I'm just really, really appreciative to that person. I really am. How they handled me, how they handled themselves, and the fact that now we're in touch and actually we get on. Of course we do. It's always the way, isn't it? But anyway, right. On that note, I shall love you and leave you. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, please do feel free to like, share and subscribe. If you would like to offer up a suggestion of a future episode, you can if you go to emilydrums.com/AMA, as in Ask Me Anything, or if you'd like to come over to Instagram, come say hi over there, you can at Hey Emily Drums. And if you'd like to book in for a free discovery call to see what one-on-one coaching could look like with me and thee, then you can go to emilydrums.com and book in for your free discovery call there. Anyway, I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, whatever you're up to. Thank you for joining me on this little journey of discomfort. And yeah, I guess I will see you next time for another subject. All right, sending you lots of love, lots of compassion, and lots of, I don't know, humanness and vulnerability. All right, I'll speak to you soon. Bye.